Hi, Stephen from Exclaim Tech News. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the new Dell G7. As a long-time user of the Dell 157567, I was keen to see what extra the G7 can bring, as it represents good value for those looking to get a gaming laptop, and now with the addition of the Coffee Lake H6 core CPUs, it could well be appealing to those that do content creation. Now the base model starts at $850 and gets you an i5-8300H quad-core CPU, 8 gigs of RAM, a terabyte hard drive and a GTX 1050. The maxed out model goes for $1,400 and you get a 16 gigabyte of RAM, 128 gigabyte SSD, a terabyte hard drive, a GTX 1060 Max-Q and a UHD IPS display. Now my unit is the $1,080 one. It has 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabyte SSD, a GTX 1060 Max-Q GPU and a 60Hz 1080p IPS display. You can get it in licorice black or Alpine White like mine, and I think it looks great. It makes the blue Dell logo on the lid stand out, and when viewed against my black 7567, it looks distinctively fresh. It also adds good contrast with the front of the laptop. I like the aggressive intake grille at the front and the equally impressive grille at the back, where you can clearly see the blue heat sinks. Now it's attention to detail at this price point that makes this model so endearing. The blue keys and the blue accented trackpad also adds good contrast. The only thing letting the aesthetics down are those large bezels. At least there's no excuse about the location of the 720p webcam, which is at the top, but note there is no Windows Hello or fingerprint reader. The webcam image is fairly clear, but it does overexpose it in bright light. The chassis is made totally out of plastic, which means the lid has quite a bit of flex. Underneath it is also ABS plastic, which is tough and scratch resistant. The rear of the lid is easy to wipe and keep clean. The white model not really showing much in the way of fingerprints. On the right hand side we have an HDMI 2.0, a Thunderbolt 3 port, 2 USB 3 Type A ports and a combo headphone microphone jack. And on the left hand side we have the Noble lock. We have the power port, which is great. It's sturdy, it's not on the right, interfering with perhaps your mouse hand. We have the Ethernet port, and we have another USB 3 Type A port and the SD card reader slot. The bad thing about this SD slot is that the card will stick out quite far. Perhaps its weakest point is actually its screen. Now it's not very bright. Even at full brightness, it is dimmer than the Aero 15W at 50% brightness. I certainly don't recommend going to 25% just to try and save battery life, as it certainly is quite dim. If you have any light shining on it, perhaps next to a window, even at full brightness it is difficult to see. Indoors it looks fine, and when compared to the TN panel on my 7567, you certainly can see more details, but colours do look a little bit washed out. And indeed, its colour accuracy is poor. 61% of sRGB, 44% of NTSC and 46% of Adobe RGB. I think if you want to do any photo editing, the UHD model may well be your best option. Now one good thing though, the LG panel has no backlight bleed. One advantage of a larger chassis is that you get larger palm rests and decent sized number pad and keyboard. The blue keyboard lighting has 3 brightness settings. I think compared to the 7567, certainly in person, the brightness isn't quite as bright, but it's still easy to see. And it's not distracting, which can be the case when you have keyboards that flash. Now the trackpad is great, it has a textured finish, it's large and its sensitivity is good with good tracking. The mouse buttons also have good tactile feedback and provide a resounding click. Getting inside to do upgrades couldn't be any easier. There is only one screw to loosen. You have the 56 watt-hour battery, a hard drive slot, a Micron SATA SSD with 516 megabytes per second read and 228 megabytes per second write speeds. It is a PCI Express slot. You have 2 RAM slots allowing a max of 32 gigabytes, and you have 2 fans with many blades. Now you do have 2 heat pipes which are shared between the CPU and the GPU. The Intel 9560 Wi-Fi card was great, giving me the best download speeds I have ever seen. Now how about battery life? Well, my 7567 enjoyed over 7 hours, but the reduction to the 56 watt-hour battery meant I only got 4 hours 48 minutes, which is a bit disappointing. And given the size of the chassis, I would have preferred a larger battery and a second M.2 slot rather than a 2.5-inch hard drive bay. Dell uses the Waves Max Audio Pro software, and I'm a big fan of it, as it does help push out quite a bit of volume out those speakers. I got 76 decibels, which isn't record breaking, and indeed it's not as loud as the 7567, but it's more than ample for gaming and movie watching. Now, although the thickness is pretty much the same with the 7567, you will notice that the G7 has thicker teeth, which helps with the cooling and airflow. There is no fan control option, but to be honest, it's not needed. Idle fan noise is quiet at 27 decibels, and under load, it's still only 37 decibels. They do a good job of cooling the chassis, with air being brought in from the front and from underneath and being pushed out the back. All essential areas such as the AWSD keys, palm rest and trackpad are cool. Even underneath, it maxes out at 37 degrees, and yes, you can clearly see the heat being pushed away from the user. Now, before I launch into component temperatures and the benchmark results, I want to tell you how to get the best out of the i7-8750H CPU. You can increase the performance using throttle stop. I disabled BD processor hot, I changed the speed shift EPP to 1, changed all the multipliers to 41, and apply an undervolt to both the CPU core and the cache. I then increased the turbo time limit to 96. So in my non-gaming tests, such as video rendering and encoding, you can see that the average CPU clock speed using these settings was increased by 9%, whilst also decreasing the temperature slightly. Not that the CPU got hot at stock, it didn't, and it never throttled. Now, with those shared heat pipes, what are gaming temperatures like? To be honest, very good. The Max-Q 1060 was very cool at 66 degrees, and even the CPU was great, 84 degrees at stock, and 78 degrees and overclocked and undervolted. In Cinebench, you can see the advantage that the 6-core CPU has over the i7 7700HQ it replaces, 35% faster. Now, overclocking saw a nice 20% improvement, so it's definitely worthwhile. Even compared to the faster clocked i7 7820HK, we see good gains. My handbrake encode test is quite a long test and exposes any CPU throttling. We see about a 22% improvement over the quad-core i7 7700HQ, but it did lag behind the same CPU in the Aero 15W. Still, this was about the same time you get with a desktop i7 7700K, and when overclocked, even beats that CPU at 4.7 GHz. Now, that is amazing for a 45 watt mobile CPU. Using Adobe Lightroom to convert 50 photos to a slideshow, we again see some nice improvements over the i7 7700HQ, shaving off 7 minutes. Using the CPU in Adobe Premiere Pro to render a 4GB 1080p movie, the extra core saves 5 minutes versus the i7 7820HK, but it again lags behind the Aero 15W. But overclocking shaves off another 3.5 minutes. Very impressive. Using the GTX 1060, however, does the same job in just under 4 minutes. To test how well it performs when multitasking, I ran the Heaven benchmark and Cinebench concurrently, and the 832 Cinebench score was consistent, so I am confident that the G7 can handle multiple tasks at the same time without throttling. The max power pull I got from the wall was 165 watts, so the included 180 watt power adapter looks like a fine choice. Using MSI Afterburner, I overclocked the GPU by 152 on the core and 58 MHz on the memory. It handles gaming with ease, certainly suitable for 1080p at high to ultra settings. Now, to cut costs, you do only get a 60Hz panel, so the more hardcore gamer may look elsewhere, but gamers on a budget, it is a fine choice, and let's face it, it is hard to get over 100 FPS in modern games with this GPU at 1080p unless you lower quality settings. Rainbow Six Siege is the exception, giving 109 FPS at ultra settings. Maxing everything out still gives you 37 FPS, and as you can see, it performs on par with the regular GTX 1060. The 6-core CPU does help with minimum frame rates in PUBG, and again matches other GTX 1060 models, 59 FPS at ultra settings. Interestingly, the 1050 Ti in the 7567 does nearly as well here. Now, Rise of the Tomb Raider, we actually do better than the Alienware 13, and the 1050 Ti in the 7567 is way behind. Far Cry 5 ultra settings, again the Max-Q 1060 performs just the same as all the other GTX 1060s, about 60 FPS. Overclocking gives an extra 5%. Finally, Battlefield 1 ultra settings, we see much the same, 59 FPS with an extra 5% when overclocked, matching other 1060 notebooks. In summation, I would say that the Dell has a winner on its hands. Sure, it's not the smallest nor the lightest gaming notebook, but it gets a lot right. Cooling and performance is great, speakers are loud enough, and fan noise is minimal. My only gripes are the screen brightness, poor color accuracy, and mediocre battery life. But you know, at this price level, it provides very good value. Now, by the way, if anyone is interested in buying this one, just shoot me an email. I'll put my email in the description below, or just shoot me a message. I'd like to thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.